Does anybody ever have any trouble waiting?
Don't say it isn't so.
I was just thinking tonight as I was kind of preparing this lesson and in the singing, I was thinking, how many men always say, I'm waiting on a woman? It's common that we're waiting. How do we handle that? Do we handle it patiently? Quietly? Do we get upset? We're going to be late? I'm one of those. Oh, and you're pointing to him too. You know, we can laugh about that as far as, you know, we can get upset and we can get frustrated and that because we're waiting, you know, and why is it taking so long? What's the deal? Let's put this in perspective to us and God. How are we at waiting on God? Are we patient? Are we easy to get along with when we don't get something answered right away in our prayers? When we've been praying and praying and praying and thinking, God, why aren't you answering? Why aren't you doing something? I'm getting tired of waiting. Are we very patient? A good example in the Bible is Jacob, the son of Isaac. He couldn't wait to get that blessing, could he? His mom helped him out a little bit on that too, but he just couldn't wait. He ended up getting the blessing from Isaac. And then he couldn't wait to get out of town because Esau was going to be after him. And then he goes and he has probably not a life that I would want to live with all the anxiety and the things that went on in his early life as he was a young man. Because he went to find him a wife and he found the one he wanted, Rachel. I'll work 7 years for her. And he did. Twice, though. Because the first 7 he worked, and he on his wedding night he went in, and who was there? Not Rachel, but Leah. The one that had tender eyes. So he had to do another 7 years for Rachel. His life just didn't go that well. And then, of course, the bickering and fighting amongst the 2 wives and the maidservants and everything that went on in that household. It just goes to show that when you try to rush things, you don't wait on God, things don't work out the best. But then, if we look in Genesis 46, after he's had all of his sons, and then one is supposedly killed, because the brothers brought back his coat, had blood on it. Had to have been something, a bear or something, a lion, killed his brother. A lot of agony over that. Because remember, Joseph was the first son of the wife that he wanted. That was the one that was promised to him. And he's gone. He spent a long time going through a lot of trouble in that because he didn't wait on the Lord. But in Genesis 46, starting in verse 1, Jacob heads off to Egypt. It says, so Israel set out with all that was his, and when he reached Beersheba, he offered sacrifices to the God of the father of Isaac. And God spoke to Israel, that's Jacob, in a vision at night, and said, Jacob, Jacob. Here I am, he replied. I am God, the God of your father. He said, do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make you into a great nation, where I will go down to Egypt with you, and I will surely bring you back again, and Joseph's own hand will close your eyes. Now he wanted to go down there probably just as soon as he heard. But he waited. He waited until it was right with God. Till God said, okay, now is the time to go. And he was blessed through that whole journey. How long did it take him to figure it out? Most of his life. Do we have a tendency to get ahead of ourselves? Make the mistake of, well, I know this is God's will, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I'll save him the trouble. That's not the way to do it. God's purpose in our lives is always the best and most profitable for us. His purpose is always the best. When we go our own way or neglect counseling with God on anything, we are more than likely going to fail. Doesn't mean that he can still work it out in the end, but we may go through a lot of hardships like Jacob did. Unneeded hardships. But he will always work his will, no matter what. It's just how we are going to go along with that. Probably waiting on the Lord is the most difficult thing to do. It requires the most faith, perseverance, and self-control. I don't think there's anything that would be tougher than to wait on God. Joe was mentioning the other day that ever since Robbie was 14 years old, she's been praying for his soul. Robbie is now 38 years old. 24 years. How many people would have gave it up after 10 years? After 15? 20 years, that's a long time. If he hasn't done anything now, well, he ain't going to do anything. 24 years. But what if it would have taken 34 years? Or 44? Would we still be willing to wait on God? Or would we just give up and say, he didn't care? That would be like calling God a liar. Because God cares about everyone. He cares about every soul in this world. May not care for what the people do, but he cares for every soul. Because he sent his son, Jesus, to die for every one of us. I can't imagine the agony that Christ went through waiting for the crucifixion that he knew was coming. Because really it started in the garden when he was praying. Waiting for that end to happen. Knowing it was God's will. It would be better to take one step in the Lord than a million miles on our own. Because we know that every step we take with the Lord is leading us to that hope and glory in heaven. I think if there's anything that's harder to do is waiting. And so many times we just have to do that. Because it's not going to happen unless we do wait. There's only one thing I think that probably we shouldn't wait on, and that is our salvation. That's one thing that we probably shouldn't wait for. We should get that taken care of as soon as possible. But the rest of the time, I think waiting on God and having Him lead us in the direction that we need to go is the best route to take. If there's anyone that has waited long enough and needs to have a decision made in following the Lord in scriptural baptism, let that be known. Otherwise, if there's a need, let someone know as we stand and sing.